Okay. Okay. We are actually filming. Okay, good. All right, so let us. And how you want to move? Well, let's actually roll just a little bit. We won't do this long. I always say that, but let's roll up our blanket and sit in Virasana. And if you need extra height, make sure you have either an extra blanket. Okay. And then between. And then I am going to grab a block just to have it handy. Okay. All right, buddy. All right. Okay, so just a little rotation. Doesn't have to be big. Just using that rotation. One, to open up the ribs and let the breath come side body, back body. Come back through center and other side. Side ribs, back ribs. Notice where it's sticky. And center, just noticing. And then first side again. And I am going to look down at that hip or thigh. And looking up. Good, more neutral with the head and then coming back to center. And then other side. And again, moving down. And looking up. Good, and more neutral. And coming back to center. Good, and then taking blocks out for a moment, let's shift a little. So I'm keeping my sitting bones connected to the blanket, right? I'm not shifting to one side. Like the opposite arm up and over. Good, maybe even bend that arm, bring the hand behind the head. And looking down for a moment. Then maybe a little full inhale into those back ribs. And then turning the head to the front and maybe looking up. It all depends on your shoulder and side waist. Take that arm back up. Good, noticing the breath. Maybe the breath's getting a little fuller. The second side, again, right? Letting the hips stay somewhat neutral. Ribs, taking that big side bend. Free arm up and over. Letting that arm bend, hand behind the head. Let's turn and look down. Almost a little flexion in that rotation. Inhale into the back ribs. And then turn to the front and look up. Good. And facing the front, reach that top arm up. And come up to center. Good. And then just a couple of breaths, right? Inhaling, letting diaphragm, respiratory and pelvic diaphragm descend towards the blanket. Widening. And as you exhale, just that little lift in the pelvic diaphragm, respiratory diaphragm. Inhale. Moving down, moving wide, moving forward, moving back. And exhale, slight lift, gathering towards the center point. Inhale down and wide. And exhale. Gathering and slight lift. One more. Good. And then shifting the breath. Let's do a little extension and flexion. Little anterior tilt in the pelvis. Letting the spine extend. Maybe the eyes lift. Posterior tilt, flexion, head drops. Just noticing the weight shift, even right to left as well as front to back. Right, need to even exaggerate the movement to get forward towards the pubis and back towards the tail, just rocking the base of the pelvis. And all the tissues between those bony landmarks in that diamond shape, pubis, sitting bones, tailbone. And then coming back to center. One hand on heart, one hand on belly. Just feeling your body from your hands, feeling your hands from your body, feeling your body. Just your sense of weight, the sense of the breath, so the weight and movement. That filling and emptying. And kind of widening and narrowing, however you feel it in the body. And after your next exhale, inhale. And exhale with a hum or an om. Let's just take the knees a little wider. I'm going to take one foot out and just step that foot on the ground. Just a little rotation towards. So away from the Virasana leg, the foot that's behind the hip. And then a simple turn away from the lifted knee. One more towards that lifted knee, away from the Virasana leg. You can even bring the knees closer together if that's helpful. Good. And let's bring that foot back behind and step the other foot up. Again, turning towards the squat, the knee that's in the squat. Feeling what's happening in the knee or the leg you're turning away from. And that sitting bone that you're turning away from. And notice what happens when you turn towards. One leg you're turning away from, one leg you're turning towards. Good, second side, second time. Good, and bring that foot back, knee under, and you can bring the knees a little closer together, keep them wide, just bringing the hands back. Good, maybe a little anterior tilt, posterior tilt. Good, and lengthening, so especially in that posterior tilt, anterior tilt, posterior tilt, feeling that length through the front of the thigh, shin, top of the foot. One more, anterior tilt and posterior tilt. Good. And then let's bring hands forward. Do one more, anterior pelvic floor, knees together or wide. And slow enough. Finding that pacing that allows the tissue to soften or respond to the movement. Noticing tighter side or denser side, less dense side. And then coming up to sit. Good. I'm just going to shift forward. Slide the blankets. Good. Just cross the ankles and slide back. Okay. Let's do one thing before we lay down. So I'm just going to play with a little Janu Shirshasana. One leg straight, one leg bent, foot close to the straight leg, thigh. Opposite hand to the straight leg. Just going to slide that hand down. So I am letting the back round, but not fully. So there's a length in the spine. So I'm asking the sitting bones to move back and up, but not demanding. And again, there is flexion, just a little more length to the flexion. Good, and then lifting that knee, stretch that leg forward, bend the leg that was just straight and do the other side. Again, just sliding and sliding out, just sliding along, hand along that outer leg or top leg. So there's a little bit of rotation, just tracking the belly and breastbone over that straight leg. And then lifting that knee, stretching the leg out. Good, and let's take feet a little bit wider. Today I'm going to bend, so similar to what we just did, but now we have one straight leg, one bent leg. Hips are on the ground. Little rotation towards the straight leg, and then a little rotation away. You can sit on a blanket if you need that height. Good, simple, simple. One more time. Turning towards. Good, not that big through the upper torso. You'll feel it more in the hips. And maybe even upper, right? Upper pelvis into the waist. Good. And let's just let that knee fall in and even open just for a moment. And then again, opposite hand, just straight leg, and I'm just slide down and slide up. One more time. Good. And then just lift the knees, stretch the leg forward. Good. Open up the feet again. Second side, bending. Again, you can sit on a blanket if you need to, turning or hands on blocks or on the floor to support. Turning towards the straight leg. And turning away. And turning towards. And turning away. Good. And then letting that bent leg, the foot just slip behind. You can keep the knees somewhat close together, all depends on your body. Then opposite hand, just sliding down. And sliding up. And sliding down. And sliding up. Good, and then pick up that knee. Good, and let's stretch the legs out for a moment. Good, and then bending the knees. We'll just do a couple more seated things. Hands behind. Let's turn the fingers towards the side of the room to start, and just let the knees do a little sweep. Sweep. Maybe a little flexion to get more of the upper glutes. Or you can stay a little more neutral and get lower glutes closer to the sitting bone. And then let's pause on one side and just take that internally rotated leg and just a little lift and lower and lift and lower. Noticing where it's more dense, is it denser, moving deeper into the internal rotation or out into the external rotation. Good. And then letting the knees lift and tip over to the other side. And again, that internally rotated leg, externally rotating, moving back to internal rotation. And my two sides feel very different. One side was harder to externally rotate, one side is harder to internally rotate. And that's not uncommon. Good, easy, long breath. Especially as you move into the stickier places, and then letting the knees move back through center. And let's turn the fingers towards the back of the room. And just a little sweep side to side, noticing if it feels smoother. Good. And then let's just pause on one side. And so the feet are going to be a little closer into the body, and we'll just tip towards the knee side of the room. Good. And then up and over, away from the knees. And then let's open up the feet if that feels available, right? So it's a little bit more 90-degree angle on each of the legs. And again, tipping towards the knee side. Notice your breath. And then tipping away. Again, we're really moving the upper side of the pelvis into the waist. Good, little rotation away from the feet. And a little rotation towards the feet. Good. And let's pull the knees in, and again, just coming back through center. And over to the first side, feet a little tucked in, tipping towards the knee side. Longer inhale, longer exhale. And then tipping away from the knees. Coming up, and again, opening the feet out. So it's more 90 degree and 90 degree. And tipping towards the legs, to the feet. And tipping away. Good, and coming up, pull the feet in. Good. Again, hands can be either turned back or you can turn them forward now. Just getting a little different movement through the wrist and shoulders. Just feeling how that feels. Okay, last more, I guess. It's different being upright with weight on it, but I'm going to start with the knees bent, and I'm just going to tip to one side, and then just play with, maybe just start with back leg, extending a little, and then bend and lift up, and over to the other side, and maybe we'll just take that back leg back, and in, good, first side again, playing with the back leg, and then maybe just opening up the front leg. Maybe. Doesn't have to be a big deal. Right? The back leg is probably the most helpful, but you can kick open that front leg. And just do one more each side. Right? Again, either back leg and you can turn towards the front leg, or again, you can play with just kicking the front leg out. Doesn't have to be very strong. And then coming to center, and let's just extend both legs for a moment. Maybe even let your weight lean back into your hands. And I'm just going to do a little, right? One leg's going to internally rotate, which is going to turn the pelvis towards the other leg. And then externally rotate that same leg and let the other leg internally rotate. So one leg's internally rotated, one leg's externally rotated. You can even bring the back hand around. First side again, one leg's going to turn out or toes towards the floor, one and the opposite back leg turning in, maybe even stretch one arm up. And I'm definitely leaning, I'm definitely back on one hand. All right, if you see me from the side, I'm pretty leaned back. Good, one more time, each side. Just a little longer lever with the legs straight. Again, long, slow inhale, so the tissues adapt. Let's fold everything in. And then roll everything down. Good. And maybe extend your legs. Arms close to the body. Good, and let's shift to the upper body for a moment. So letting the head just slowly roll to one side. And slowly center. A nice heavy roll, slow roll. Really just feeling the shape of the head, what's happening in the neck. Right, where do you get little fibers that pull and grab? And slowly back to center. Good, and first side again. And just pause at your end range. Good, and eyes can be either open or closed. Maybe even both, just to feel the difference, but let's maybe look towards the floor with the eyes. You don't have to turn the head, it might just happen. And then looking away from the floor towards that back shoulder. And then maybe try one, if you did it with eyes open or eyes closed, do the opposite. Looking towards the floor and then back towards the back shoulder and then come back to center. Letting the chin soften towards the side neck. And then slowly, slowly roll back to center. And take your time really listening to all those fibers, right? Fibers of tissues, front neck, side neck, back neck. Many directions of fibers. And then tipping. Nice, slow, heavy roll towards the other side. And end range might be different side to side. And then again, looking towards the floor, either the movement of the eyes, whether the eyes are open or closed. And then relax that effort and looking back towards the back shoulder. And then switching the eyes open or closed, depending on what you did the first time. And then looking back. Eyes more neutral, chin softening towards the shoulder area. And then slowly, slowly coming back to center. Good, let's just do a little roll of one leg. You can even put your hand on your frontal hip bones. It's always interesting to feel as you turn in and out. Again, slow enough so you also feel the movement of the back hip against the floor. Again, is it harder to turn in or out? In the middle or end range? knee or hip or ankle? Where does the tissue start to feel like less able to do the rotation or the movement? And then pause and do the other side. And notice how the hip is rolling against the floor. How the knee is, like the tension, or is there a torsion in the knee or the ankle or the hip? Easier to turn out, easier to turn in. And then letting your legs settle, both of them, just settle back. And then bending knees, feet flat on the floor. Good. You can take the arms a little further out or all the way out or somewhere in between. But I'm going to let the right leg lead. The right leg is going to tip. And I'm going to let the pelvis follow. Left foot's flat on the floor. Put a little weight into that left foot to let the pelvis tip. And then let the pelvis tip back to center. And that leg is pretty heavy, so the pelvis can initiate and tip away from the leg, and then the leg can follow. And then other side, right? Both feet flat. As the left leg starts to tip, you'll roll onto the outer foot. Pelvis will follow. Right foot can press just a little, tipping the pelvis. You can even let that outer left leg come to the ground. And then letting the pelvis start to tip away. And the pelvis drawing the leg, coming back to center. Good. One more time, tipping right. Thigh tips, pelvis follows. Left foot steps. And then pelvis rolls back. Drawing the right leg up. Second side. Left leg tips, pelvis tips. Right foot steps, maybe even just that sense of the knee moving away from the ribs. And then pelvis rolling back, thigh rolling back. Good. One more. Tip. Tipping right. Again, I'm going to put a little press into that left foot, a little more length. Right, side body, front thigh, front body on the left side. More inner leg on the right leg. And rolling back. And left side, left leg tipping, right foot pressing. Again, length from right ribs to right knee. Front hip, front thigh. And then rocking the pelvis back, getting that left inner thigh. Good, and pause. And we'll just do a couple of these. We're going to actually do well, let's see. Okay, so right leg tipping towards the left leg. So we fall into that internal rotation in the right leg. And then slide that foot down. If you need to turn and put your foot on the floor, wood floor to slide, you can. Externally rotate that leg. And slide up. And lift the knee. Let's do one more like that. Leg tips in. And straightens. Externally rotates. Foot slides up towards the hip, knee towards the ceiling, changing the shape to accommodate where it's grabby. If it's grabby, change the shape or lessen the bend or lessen the pull towards the body. Let's just change direction. Externally rotate, slide down. Internally rotate and slide that foot up. Knee drop to the left. Knee lifts, tips out into external rotation, straightens, internally rotate, foot slides up, with that knees tipping to the left and center. And let's turn around, go back, internally rotate, same leg, straighten, externally rotate and bend. You can even let the pelvis rock to the right to bring that foot up. And then I'm going to keep bringing the foot up and slip it behind the left foot or walk the foot in front of the left foot in front of the right foot. And let's step into that left foot and again get that tip to the right. Good, nice and simple. And slowly rock back onto the back of the pelvis. And rocking. Step into that left foot so you get a little bit of length through the front of the left thigh, a little bit through the front and inner of the right thigh. And slowly rock back. One more. Again, make it smooth, make it easy, make it slower, make it softer. Breath longer. Good, and then slip the foot out. And let's just straighten that right leg in that externally rotated position. Good, internally rotate. Gonna rock to the left a little bit as you slide that leg up. Pause. Good, maybe a little anterior tilt, posterior tilt. And let's straighten both legs out on the floor just for a breath or two. And then bend the legs. Same thing, other side, tip that left knee in, externally or internally rotate. Pelvis might even lean to the right a little. So you straighten that left leg. Externally rotate. Again, you could tip a little bit more into the left butt cheek as that left foot slides up. Left knee to the ceiling. Internally rotate and straighten. Externally rotate and bend. And you can keep the pelvis still. Doesn't really matter, just what is easier. Externally rotate and straighten. internally rotate, let that leg hug the right leg as it bends. Externally rotate, straighten, and internally rotate and bend. Let's go back to the first series of internally rotating the left leg, sliding out along the floor till it straightens. Externally rotating that leg, bend, slide up. And I'm just going to slip the foot behind the right foot or step the right foot in front of. Let's do a little tip. You can let the arms come out to the side or wider. Getting that length through the front of the right thigh and front and inner left thigh. And then rocking back. And again, a little rock. The head can turn oppositionally or same direction as the movement of the pelvis. Again, just noticing maybe the difference in the front hips or the lower back or the outer hips. And how does that influence how you move? Notice what you grab around or breathe around. Good. After your last tip to the side and back to center, just slipping that foot out. Letting that leg straighten in that external rotation. And then internally rotate and slide up. Good. And then just a little anterior tilt, posterior tilt. Good. Even take the feet a little bit wider, drop the knees together. Good. And then when you're ready, straighten both legs. If you need to put something under your knees, please do so. Or blocks under your knees. You can even put that blanket roll under your knees. And just take another several breaths. Again, that sense of widening, softening. And letting the legs get heavy, that right leg from the toes to the hip. And the left leg from the toes to the hip. And that right arm from the fingers to the shoulder. Whole shoulder, front and back and sides. And that left side from fingers to shoulder. Good. And the front body, right, front hips, pubis, lower belly, navel, solar plexus area, ribs, breast, collarbones, throat, even the face, lips, nose, cheeks, eyes, brow, temple, jaw, mouth. And back body of the buttocks and lower back, up through the ribs, back shoulders, even the top shoulders and side neck, back of head.
Settling back. Keeping that sense of spaciousness, softness, suppleness, little movement in your fingers and toes, hands and feet, arms and legs, bending, folding, rolling.
Coming back up to sit. With one hand on heart, one hand on belly, just feeling in, touching in, body, breath. And after your next exhale, inhale for a hum or an om. Om.